Hi, everybody. This is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, Stories of the Supernatural. And the following is one of the True Believers stories that you hear me ask for so often in all of my other shows. Sometimes I'll get the person to actually retell it, or other times they will send me an email and I will do it for them. But either way, I hope you enjoy their stories, most of them which are true.
Things that happen and continue to happen to me. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know why, but I never really dug into it. People just say that I have like I'm sensitive to things.
Sure. Yeah. No. And I totally understand. Sometimes people start having them since they're a kid, and then other people, things happen not only after they're an adult. What happened with you? Was it something that started since you were a kid, or what?
Well, as far as I can remember, I must have been about 6,
Okay.
and we were living in an apartment in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
And my mom, it's a very small account. I don't know if it's because I was so young,
Mm-hmm.
but my mom would put me to bed, and it was, a twin bed. And if
Right.
you can picture, to the right was the dresser, and
Okay.
in the corner of the dresser was a little black and white TV, and then
Okay.
there's the door, and then
Okay.
my closet, if you can picture that.
Sure.
So mommy would come and put me to bed, and I'm laying in bed. So what I'm seeing from the bed is the door, the TV, like that at an angle.
Right.
So the TV would stay on a little bit. I guess she would keep it on. She'd walk away,
Right.
and as soon as she would start walking away, there were two twins, just the same size. I would say about, you can't see, but kids,
Right.
maybe 5-year-old height,
Okay.
but two of them. And they would start slowly coming towards me, and of course I would scream. And my
Okay.
mom, the moment my mom would start coming into the bedroom, they go
Right.
right back behind the TV.
Wow.
Technically they're not hiding, because I can still see them. You can see, it was a shadows, you can
Mm-hmm.
see their shadows.
Right.
And in my memory, like I'm telling you now, it's like I can see it so clearly, and
Right.
I'm 46. This is 40 years ago.
Right.
And this is what they would do. There were two white entities, and they will start very slowly coming, at me, and then of course scream again. And this was just, apparently, when I grew up, and I would tell my best friend at the time, I was in my early 20s.
Right.
My mom admitted that she would see them too.
Oh, so one of those, huh? Let me
Yeah.
ask you: did you ever did it stop? After a while, or did you just keep seeing them, or did it stop because you moved away?
We moved to
Okay,
here,
okay,
to Florida. This was in Puerto Rico. And
okay,
as a little kid, uh, apparently, according to my mom and my dad, I would always see things or hear things or talk to
okay.
something. I guess
Right.
they were there for me. As a little kid, I only remember these two little twins. I call them the twins because they were identical in size. And
Okay.
then as I grew older, then we went, to different houses. I don't remember anything until I was about, all right, we moved to several different places when we came here. And
Okay.
then there was a townhome that my mom had an eye on. They were building them. They were new.
Okay. Okay.
So we went to see them, my grandma, my mom, and myself. We were the first people ever to live there. A townhome, a two-story townhome.
Right. So it was brand new. Okay.
Brand new. We were the only ones there. This is in front of Tropical Park. I don't know how familiar you
Right.
are
Yeah.
with
Yeah. Yeah. Of
there.
course. Yeah. I know exactly
All
where it's
right,
at.
behind the McDonald's.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I would say maybe when I was 14 or something, it
Mm.
started with, I would sit in the couch watching television, and
Right.
when you feel like someone's standing next to you or behind you.
Sure.
Well, it was one of those I would turn and there's nobody there. That's how
Okay.
it started. Me feeling like there was someone watching me.
Okay.
So I'm like, whatever. Then I started going to church. I started playing in a church choir and stuff,
Okay.
and it became even worse because by then my parents would leave me alone at the house. I was old enough.
Right, right, because you're already old enough.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
I'm a
like,
teen. I'm in high school already.
okay.
Okay. So I'm alone in the townhome, and I'm in my bedroom, and of course I hear someone coming up the steps.
Oh,
So I'm like, yes, mom's home. All right. I hear don't, and I'm like, yeah, mommy's home. Open the door to my bedroom. Look, there's nobody there. I'm like,
wow.
okay. I wouldn't make much of it. To me, it seemed like normal. I don't know if
Yes.
this is. I'm gonna sound like I'm crazy, but I'm not.
Right,
And it will continue. But then I guess since I wasn't making a big deal about it,
right.
the entity or whatever it was said, well, I'm going to take it a little step further. It's the computer. So then it would be, I got used to the steps because it was so often it came to a point where I was like, whatever. I wouldn't even come out. Like, I'm
Okay. And what
then
would it would just stop once it reached the top of the steps or
once
what?
it reaches stop, it would stop.
Okay.
I know, right? But you can hear the thump, thump, thump,
Right,
thump.
right. Yeah, like it's like, yeah, what else is it
Yeah,
gonna be? Uh-huh.
right. So I'm like, I got over it. I'm like, whatever. It's nobody there. What am I going to do?
Okay.
So, and I would never be scared. I've never been scared.
Okay.
And then it started when you came to the top of the steps. Imagine there was like a table, a long table with a mirror and
Okay.
two small chandeliers on each side of it, like
Okay.
the ones with the big sticks like that.
Right.
So then he or she. I'm thinking it's always been a he.
Right, right.
Right? I feel he decided that since I wasn't paying attention to the steps, when he got to the top of the steps, he'd rattle the chandeliers.
Oh my God.
So,
So it's like, yeah, you can't ignore this.
yeah. So it was like, you're ignoring me, you know. And that went on until, of course, we moved somewhere else.
Okay.
And then, oddly enough, my mother admitted to feeling something in that house as well. Because when she was admitting all this stuff, it's
Okay.
while I was telling my best friend at the time all my great stories that I had,
Right.
and my mom was like, "Yeah, definitely," because she would be sitting in the couch and felt the same things or hear the same footsteps and stuff like that, and
Right.
there's nothing there. So that's been going on. Everywhere I go, there's always something.
Okay.
Here, it doesn't stop. This is my father's apartment. He's
Move your
still alive.
camera a little bit. You moved the shifted the fan because now I'm only looking at your forehead again. I don't know.
Oh wait, how about now?
There you go. Okay, you're good. All right, keep
Better?
going. Great
Uh,
story. Keep
all
going.
right. Now, here in this apartment, like I said, it's my dad's. He's been here for over 10 years, if no more, probably 20 years.
Okay.
And it started, I'm in and out, phases in my life. I go move somewhere else. I doesn't
Right.
work. I move back here.
Okay.
And it started with, I would see it's a tall, dark figure with a hat, and it's dark. And I don't know if you can tell here, this floor I'm sitting on is a couch. I
Okay.
always see this little area,
Right.
and to the right, there's no door. There's just like a little space. I don't know if you can see. There's like
Right.
no door or anything like that.
Right. Right.
But I would lay on that way, looking out here, and I would open my eyes, and I'm like, okay, so there's somebody just standing there halfway.
Okay.
So again, I mean, you're getting on my nerves kind of thing. And I talked to my
Mhm.
cousin. My cousin says, you know what? Blurt it out. Go away and leave me alone.
Right.
I
Right.
don't know. We don't know who it is. At least I don't know who it is. My
Okay.
father sees a lot. My father sees a lot
Well, I
of
was about to ask you, is anybody else there seeing stuff, or are
that
you like the only one?
that that just doesn't tell me.
Okay.
But when he does, he thinks he's gonna scare me, but he doesn't. Like, he'll see somebody going from the kitchen to his bedroom.
Okay.
Um, and I'll be nowhere near it. And then
Okay.
he's like, did you just go to the bathroom? Like, he'll come all the way over here to ask me if I went to, I'm here. No.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Like he doesn't know how to explain it. But here it's more because it started getting again elevating where I'm here, sitting here. The kitchen is right next to me, but there's a wall.
Right.
So all of a sudden you'll hear the cabinet slamming.
Are you kidding
And
me?
I don't know. This is all recent in the last 2 3 years and hasn't stopped till to
Okay.
today. It hasn't. And I hear the cabinets and I'm like, okay, here we go again. Well, that's not good enough. So there's a bell on the door where the air conditioning is and whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and rattle the bell. And again, I keep saying I think it's a heat.
Right.
He rattles the bell, and it's always when my dad is not here that
Wow.
he messes with me.
Okay.
And the new one has been where I literally hear a key on the front door open, the bird goes nuts, the dog thinks there's somebody here, and I said, "Oh, that's home." And I'm
Okay.
just sitting here waiting for my dad to come around.
Right.
There's nobody there.
So even the animals are reacting.
Even the animals, yeah, and that's what caught my attention. I'm like, I know now for sure. In
Right.
40 years
Exactly.
that I doubt it, yeah. I mean, no way.
Do you think it's you? What you're seeing is it the same thing as what your dad's describing? Has I mean, in other words, has he ever seen, or is it just like you said? I see somebody walking from one room to the other, but he's never gotten to say is it a man or a woman or anything like that.
He sees a woman dressed in white.
Okay.
Um, there's a friend that he has from Panama,
Mm-hmm.
sees a man when
Okay.
she comes to visit.
Oh wow.
Yeah, she's from Panama, but when she comes to visit, she's seen what we call the man.
Okay. And I was curious. If, do you think this is the same guy that's been like following you around all over the place, or is it somebody different?
I think I don't know.
Okay.
It's gotten to a point where I don't know because I just remembered something else. When my
Okay.
mom passed away in '97, I moved to an
Okay.
apartment on Sunset,
All right.
and like 2 days later, I got a dog because I wanted a dog, and where we were at, we couldn't have one. But anyway,
Okay.
I don't know who was in the apartment, but he would stand in the hallway and tilt his head, and I
Mm-hmm.
would catch him doing it, tilting his head. I wasn't in front of him, I was behind him. I would
Okay.
look at him do it, like if somebody was talking to him.
Okay.
And again, it's like it's become so common to me that it doesn't um, it
Right,
doesn't
right, right.
faze me.
Unless it's something like really out of hand, you it just becomes like like background noise. I know what you're saying.
Yeah. And but here is I don't know if it's because I've been here so long that it's more frequent, the bells and the
Mm-hmm.
door and this that. And I remember one day, um, this was last year actually. I was making a cake,
Okay.
and I had a bowl in the kitchen, and I had a whisk.
Okay.
So I imagine the bowl with the batter and the whisk
Okay.
in it, okay, in it.
Okay.
I turn around and my back is facing the kitchen. I'm facing this way, and all of a sudden I hear a flop. So
Okay.
picture this: the whisk somehow came out of the bowl, landed on the floor. There's no splatter.
Okay.
So if I'm trying to debunk the thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, did I leave it out I mean, how high or how out of the bowl could I have stupidly left it
Right, right.
that it
Yes.
that it's gonna go like this at a backwards angle, leaves the marks of the whisk on the batter, doesn't
Mm-hmm.
splatter a thing, not even on the floor. It's almost like if you placed it on the floor. So when I picked it up, all the lines on the batter were there, but there's no splatter. So I left it like that because my father was taking a shower, and I said, "You have got to see this."
Right.
And when
Exactly.
he saw it, he just nodded his head, and he's like, "Only to you." I go, "That seriously,
But you know
think."
what? It sounds like it's also him. Also, it's not like In other words, or it's really funny because it's almost like you're seeing something and he's got his own thing going on on his end that he
Hmm.
sees. And
That was
have you felt it ever to outside of the home?
um not that I can
Okay.
not that I can remember, but I have my sister has called me to her house
Okay.
just for me to see if I felt something in her house.
Also,
This
what
is the purpose of my visit.
that's it. Why she has her own experiences or what?
I think so, but I mean we don't talk anymore, so I remember her calling me over just
Mm-hmm.
to see if I felt something.
Okay.
Uh, I don't know what they think I am, but.
Right. Well, like a barometer. So obviously something must have been going on that she said, almost like you want to get somebody else who you know. And in other words, if anything was there, you were going to be
Mhm.
able to say yeah, no, or good, bad, or. And it's really
The,
funny
the
because
the
when
one
you said that a man was wearing a hat, what kind of hat was he wearing?
picture, do you remember? I'm sure you do. The cover of The Exorcist, the
Yes.
cover of the
Yes.
movie. Remember,
Yes.
there's like a guy in a hat and a suitcase.
Yeah. Right. Which is
Is
the
that The
Exorcist guy.
Exorcist?
Yes.
Well, that like that. It's a
Wow.
shadow. Um, that's what I'm picturing, and I'm pretty sure that's the cover of The Exorcist.
Right, yeah, yeah, yeah. That shows him approaching the house, and it's like, yeah, he's
Yeah.
like very dim lighting. Like the only thing is the light from the light pole from the.
Uh-huh.
Yes, yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. Oh,
That's
right. Okay,
that's
yes, right.
so imagine like that type of a hat
Mm-hmm.
with a coat, but
Okay,
I can't make any details on this man, and he is tall. I can't
okay,
make any details because he's a dark entity, and that's why I didn't even want to mess with it because
okay.
I don't, you know, I I'm not afraid of him, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't welcome him.
And
To me, he's a joke, and I think he's not liking that, and that's why it's heightened. It's just no longer the cabinets that you know that he
right,
needs to
because that's
mess with.
very but it's really weird also because a lot of times when you hear like what you're describing, exactly what you're describing, like somebody doing stuff in the kitchen, like opening cabinet doors or whatever. Sometimes you see that a lot with ghosts that are of people that used to live there. You know what I'm saying? And like they're kind of doing the what they would normally do, like
Hmm.
kitchen stuff.
Right.
Uh and so that's why I was wondering, you see one and then your dad, says he's seen a lady and I'm thinking, I wonder if maybe she's the cabinet one. Who, is she the one that's banging around the cabinet? That doesn't mean
It
that that's that way, but
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I've not never really again like I've never really wondered, why are you following me? Because sometimes I feel that I'm being followed, but honestly, I think it's something here.
they're at
I think
where.
my I think it's two different. Like you say, my father has something and I have something totally different.
Right, right. Because, well, like your experience when you were a kid, the two little girls, the two twins or whatever, obviously
Mhm.
it sounds like that was something that was part of where you were living at. Um, you know,
I don't, I don't know if anybody died there. I don't
no, you
remember
know
my
what?
parents.
Sometimes, when you're a kid, I mean, how do you find out about this? And let's face it, even then, people normally do not come up to a child or say in the presence of a little kid about some tragedy.
Right.
When you're a kid, you're like you're on the outside of that whole scenario, and then like you said, you moved away, and who knows?
Yeah.
But in other words, but what you described there is not a hat man. It's nothing like this. This was two
Mhm.
children, and
Yeah, and it was white.
right, and it was right,
The-
and it was like that thing about them being twins. That's wow. No wonder you must have been like I don't want to. And were you alone in the room, or did you have your sister in that room when you were little in there, or
No,
was?
we always had separate rooms.
Oh,
My room was next to my parents, obviously, I guess, because I was the small one. But
okay.
my sister was way at the other end of the apartment, and no, I always, and a lot of times I would end up in my parents' room, sleeping on the floor. So I don't know if maybe I was scared, but I do remember sleeping a lot on the floor
Yeah, yeah. Because
of
let me
my
tell you something.
parents.
It can, of course, as a child, that's a very difficult thing because um, you're seeing something, and who knows? For all you know, that might have been the bedroom that belonged to those children, and that's why
Hmm.
lucky you. Uh,
Yeah.
and now, as far as and you're saying you're not afraid of it, which is good, but at the same time, you're very. It sounds like you know you want to keep a distance between you and it. Like, okay, if in other words, you don't engage it. You're trying to like, okay, you're doing all this stuff, and I'm just going to ignore it, and then it starts to step it up so that you have to pay attention. In other words, okay,
Yeah, I think it wants me to pay
of
attention. I
course.
think I don't know what it wants
Have you
from
ever
me.
had any dreams or nightmares or anything where you think that the source would be uh, any of the whatever it is that you're seeing, that they're trying to like maybe communicate with you somehow? Something that you would not allow, let's say, when you're awake, because you've got your defenses up when you're awake. Have you ever had weird dreams?
I have, as far as weird, sometimes I get weird dreams, but one of the things that the few people that I've spoken to, um, I dream very real,
Mm-hmm.
if you will, and I pay very close attention to my dreams. Like I remember before my mom passed away, pretty much saw her passing,
Really?
and there were a lot of sevens. There were a lot of sevens in my dream, and there were
Okay.
floating sevens. And
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken, she died on the 27th of
Okay.
97, and it was
Wow.
probably a week before she passed. So
Okay.
seven.
All right.
Uh,
So that was so yeah, there's some type of clairvoyance there. And that's why I asked, because I know sometimes I've heard of people when they're having experiences similar to what you're describing and they're not engaging with whatever's there, then it tries to go in through the dreams. And let's face it, I mean, everybody has weird dreams. Everybody has nightmares. Yeah, that's not because it has anything to do with ghosts or anything. It's just, but sometimes, you know, you have these dreams that when you're having them, you realize that it is tied to whatever is there. That, and somehow it's, in other words, if I can't communicate with you while you're awake, I'm going to
mhm.
try to infiltrate your dreams and tell you what it is that I'm trying to communicate with you, whatever that might be.
Right.
And
I don't know if that, like, you know what, I've never paid attention to possibly having that type of communication.
oh no, no,
Uh,
don't get me wrong. I don't. I think you're being very smart about how you're handling it. And no, and I was curious also because when you said, "Oh, I've only seen the silhouette," because I was gonna say, you know, is it somebody, you know, is it somebody that you recognize or not recognize? You know, sometimes when you see the face, that's not that often. Sometimes you don't see the faces, but sometimes you know how when you know how when you see somebody and the way they stand or the way they look or the way they're dressed, you kind of know who it is.
yeah,
But from what
there
you're
was
telling
a
me,
dis- there was a discussion about that because I came across a picture of one of my uncles,
okay,
and he was wearing a similar coat. And
okay,
I questioned my father. I said, why? I'm thinking is one uncle. And I said, why would I be involved in any of this? You know, so he doesn't have the answer, of course, and I don't either.
okay,
And in my head, I'm like, look, we have nothing to talk. We have no unfinished business. I was
right,
a kid when they passed, so like, there's nothing to say. And whatever entity it is, because it's dark, I
Mm.
don't think it's good.
And what
None of
this
them
is,
have ever.
this uncle was what, one of your dad's brothers?
No, my mom's.
Oh, your mom's. Okay.
Yeah, one of my mom's brothers. I don't know why from the first time I saw that,
Mm-hmm.
he's the first one that came into my head. I wasn't close to him or anything. It was
Let me
like,
ask something. Did he I imagine that if he was your and you said he passed away when you were a kid, he doesn't sound, unless there was a big age difference, he wasn't that old, in other words, when he passed, right?
no. He must have been, gosh, he must have been in his 50s.
Okay. Okay, which is
It,
still, that's like,
it is
okay.
it is young. Yeah, yeah. Um,
That's a
but towards the end, I mean, yeah, we were closer because mommy, he was got very sick, and
mm-hmm.
mommy used to go over there all the time, and of course I had to go because she didn't never wanted to leave me alone.
Right.
But I would always go with her, and he wanted me to make him a T-shirt. I made him a T-shirt, before he passed, whatever.
Okay.
But it wasn't that closeness that.
Right, right, right. And I understand what you're saying. You know, 'cause sometimes we have aunts and uncles that we're very close to, and then there's others
Yeah.
that, yeah, technically they're your aunt and your uncle. It's not, but let me ask you: do you, before he passed away, you had never seen that entity? It was only after he passed away.
I never seen I had never seen anything like that. Um even the guy on the stairs in the townhome, I
Mm-hmm.
never saw anything. I
Okay.
only heard
Only
and
heard.
heard and felt the presence. Never
Right.
saw it.
And you made
Yeah,
a very
never.
good point that that townhouse was brand new. You know, it
Yeah,
wasn't like,
I have to say it because I have no nothing. I mean, we couldn't move in because they were finishing it, finishing the building them.
right.
They were putting final whatever's on them. We were the first ones there.
Yeah, exactly. And you
So,
never, and I know sometimes neighbors don't talk about those things, but none of your neighbors ever complained of having weirds. And the reason why I say this is that sometimes things happen on a piece of land, and then of course maybe a house was there and it was demolished, and then they redevelop it and they build townhouses, and there you go. Did you ever have any of your neighbors say anything, or did you hear anything through your, your parents about the neighbors saying, oh, that something was happening in their house?
no, I can't say that I have
Okay.
no. And I don't even remember what used to be there.
Right. No, no.
Uh,
Sometimes you don't. Sometimes, stuff gets demolished and, redeveloped long, and the people that move in have no idea whatsoever, that anything was ever there before. You know,
mhm,
it's just, and like you said, hey, they built it, but I think it's very unusual though, like what you said, that the less attention you gave it, the more it wanted to make its presence known. Like, you can't ignore me. That's
mhm.
that's very unusual.
And that's the same case here.
Okay.
Because it wasn't enough where when it first started and I would hear the cabinet, I
Mm-hmm.
would get up and go to the kitchen and
Right.
and, and see, okay, there's nothing there. Come back, sit down. A couple minutes later, again, I hear noises or a plate. I would hear like a plate. And I'm like, okay, get up and do that again until I'm like, "Ugh, I had enough. Okay, so then it started happening, and I just, okay, there it is again, that kind of thing. Here we go again. And that's when it elevates. Let me take it a step further. Let me take it
Okay.
a step further. Now it's the doors. Now it's the little, I call it a cowbell, but it's not. It's like one of those Christmas round things with the bell inside the thing.
Yes.
There.
Yes.
And nobody's touching that door. There's nobody here but me and the dogs and the bird.
Right. Yes. Like,
But then
okay.
the thing just goes bling, like, okay.
Have you ever gone someplace and had seen something like, like when you just, like something like what your sister, wanted you to do for her, like come over and see? Have you ever gone someplace not expecting to see anything, and if you actually had an experience?
In my cousin's house, I I would feel things like every time I'd visit. I mean, to the point where I just stopped visiting.
That bad, huh?
That uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept telling her. Finally, she broke down and says, "What do you see?" And I said, "I see a guy. It's a dark figure, and it walks up and down. The
Mm-hmm.
from the living room to the dining room, and the living room to the dining room, and it's very uneasy. And
Okay.
it's very uneasy." She said, "What do you think I should do?" And I'm like, "I don't know, sage, right? I don't. I have no idea, but it's very uneasy, and it is very uneasy. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if it's pacing, but it's very thick. His presence is thick. That's the only way I could explain it. He's uneasy and he's thick.
Okay.
Um, like he almost kind of makes he makes the atmosphere thick, if that makes any
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yes. Yes.
Not like sometimes you breathe a place that is clear, and you breathe the clear. He made it heavy, heavy. That's the word, heavy,
Had she had her own experiences?
all the time.
Okay. So she knew what you were talking about.
She knew.
Okay.
She
Did
knew.
did she have any suspicions of who it might be?
No,
Okay.
not at all. But I think theirs is a situation where you're inviting things that you're not supposed to because of the stuff that they like.
Oh,
If you get my drift,
yes, I do. I do. And that
like
could be a problem.
her mom is into all that kind of stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
my cousin has kind of like the same things. We share that in common.
Right.
But I think what she attracts is more on the darker side
Well, yeah.
because of her mother. Yeah.
Yeah, you can that you never know what you're gonna get, and boy, like the Forrest Gump, like the box of chocolates, you never know what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
And yeah, more likely than not, sometimes you really end up with, like you said, something very dark or thick, uneasy, uh, dark in the sense of a soul that's not at peace. How's that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
At the office too, I get it sometimes and it stopped. I think it's because I brought it up to the attention of mine. I know it's gonna think I'm crazy, but when I started working at the office,
Mm-hmm.
I felt stuff. I'm always the first one there, and it's the older building in Coral Gables,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm always the first one there, and I could feel like somebody around me, and I'm like, oh, well, great,
Okay.
another place. And I talked to the girl that was working there, and I said, look, you don't think I'm crazy, but she goes, I know what you're gonna tell me, and I said, what? She goes, you felt it too, huh? And I'm like, get out. I asked, like, just like that. I'm like, get out. She's like, you feel it too, right? I'm
Uh-huh.
like, Annabelle, I'm not even joking. She's like, don't worry. She goes, you're not nuts. We feel it too. She goes,
Okay.
not everybody feels it. She's talking about the girl upstairs.
Right.
And I said, all right, well, I guess I'm just gonna ignore that one too. And then on another day, I went into the office, and I'm not joking. As I'm walking, I do everything pretty slow. I'm walking,
Uh-huh.
and I felt something, so I kind of turned around, not quickly. I never jolt.
Right.
I'm very careful because if I see something, I want to see it.
Right.
I don't want to think I see it, and I very carefully, when I turn, I'm turning, and I feel something blow right here on the top of my head.
Wow.
Mind you, I know you're gonna. Let's debunk it. Is it the AC vent?
Right. Right.
No, it's not. I don't like cold, so until everyone gets there, that AC's not on.
Yeah.
And even if it was on,
Right.
the vents here hit the top of my desk, and my chair is here, and I'm
Right.
here, outside of my desk. So it was like a like that. I don't
Mm-hmm.
hear it. I only felt it. So I'm like, all right. So I gotta go upstairs now. This is gonna be fun. So I mean, I went upstairs. Nothing. No, no big deal. But it's always something, and I it it's become almost like such a part of my life
Let
that
me ask
I
you something.
don't.
The thing at your job, has anybody seen anything, or is it just stuff like what you like feelings, or you know,
Annabelle said she's seen it.
and
She's seen it, and I jokingly said, "Okay, you know what? It's a man with a briefcase and a hat." And she goes, Why are you joking?" She goes, "Because that's what I've seen."
oh,
And I said, "Because I was joking." And she goes, "No." And I go, "Okay, well maybe it was an attorney. I don't know from, but it's not because I'm pretty sure that building. It's not a building. It looks like a house.
mm-hmm.
It was turned into an office.
Right, right.
And
Yeah, I know
this
what
was
you're talking about. Something that used
yeah,
to be a residence, and then they changed the zoning, and they were allowed to put offices there. Is what you're describing.
yeah.
Okay.
So it's little things like that. I think I'm more
Yeah.
sensitive to those things than most people are.
Sure. It sure sounds like it. I'll tell you that much
I,
right now. But you know what? You have a very pragmatic approach to it. You have a very sensible approach to it. Okay, it sounds like you really know how to draw the boundaries. In other words, you've been experiencing this since you were a kid, but at the same time, it doesn't run your life. So there's some people that just somehow cannot deal with it. They
Mhm.
they just like they're overwhelmed, for lack of a better word, with the experiences. And it sounds like you have some really strong boundaries, like between that and like your life. Even though I know what you're saying, that kind of steps up the not, the activity to force you into paying attention. Which, there's a lot of people out there that they say that a lot of times these entities, they feed off the attention, as in fear that they get
Mhm.
from the people that are alive around it. It's almost like,
Right,
like we're their battery. And when you're
right.
pumped up and you pay attention and you're like wigged out, you are supercharging them so that then they, of course, will, you can either see them or they step up the activity, whatever the case might be.
Hmm.
And that thing about your
I
animals,
have
that's a good indicator.
the animals.
Yeah.
Yeah, those really, they're good. The ones I've had, especially the one that I was telling you about earlier when my
Mm-hmm.
mom passed.
Right.
He was super. I mean, like he would just sit and stare at nothing and just like something was talking to him, like tilt his head.
Right.
Like
Mm-hmm.
what? This is crazy.
Right. Exactly. And
But
when you have an animal, you know by looking at your animal,
mhm.
what's going on with them. And like you said, he's paying attention to something.
Yeah, yeah, and she does too, Penny. She's not as active as active as he is,
Mm-hmm.
but she senses things and she'll go and look too when I think I hear something. Cause like I said, even the bird hears it. I mean, if the bird hears it and he starts going nuts, it's like there's no way it's
Let me ask you,
I
as
make
far as that activity
yeah.
in the kitchen, is it at certain times of the day, or is it? It could happen anytime.
It has never been at night.
Okay.
Um, 95%, I would say the kitchen part of it,
Mm-hmm.
always when my dad is not here.
Isn't that weird?
You tell me. Always when daddy's not here. And yeah, I'm 46. I call him daddy. Hold on, I'm just trying to get my water.
Don't worry. Yeah, I know what you mean as far as that. But yeah, that's because the reason why I asked is that sometimes, remember that I said, a lot of times you think of activity in the kitchen as somebody that lived there, and you think of, okay, usually in the daytime is when people use the kitchen more. I'm not saying that,
Yeah.
but usually it's when, if you had a housewife or somebody, the kitchen, in the kitchen doing stuff, normally it's the middle
Hmm.
of, during the daytime. But then that thing about not happening when your father's around. Hmm.
That took me a while to put it together that it would happen. These things are happening when he's not here. except for the bowl and the bell. Like the bell has happened when he's here, and he's laying on the couch, and I hear the bell because I want to know that what I heard is
Mm-hmm.
what I heard. And I'm like, did you just get up? He looks at me like, no. I said, okay. He goes, why? What did you hear?
Yeah,
You
he's
know,
like,
he already knows.
yeah.
I got nothing, the bell.
Right. In other words, he knows she's asking me for a reason.
Yeah, yeah. It just becomes such a common, like I said, it's like part of my life, sort of.
How's he handle it? Does he handle it like you? He's not scared. He's just like, oh yeah, whatever. I'm just like,
He's more apprehensive than I
okay,
am,
all right.
in the sense that I can't wait to tell somebody. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I don't care if it's the same cabinet slamming 10 times, I want to tell it 10 times.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he's more on the hush hush. Oh, I didn't want to tell you, but the other day, I'm
Right.
like, just tell me when it happened. Who did you see this time?
Okay. Let me ask you, just
So,
out of curiosity, has your father
sure.
ever told you that he's like you, that he's had seen things since he was a kid, or was it only as an adult?
No, as I've gotten older, and I guess he sees that I'm sensitive to this stuff, he tells me how he can, and to be quite honest with you, I think he's nuts. But I listen to him, and whatever he goes to me that he has the ability to go somewhere.
Okay.
Like, he, I don't know if I can explain it.
Astral projection, maybe.
One, I don't know what it's called, but he'll say, "Oh, you'll never guess where I went." And I'm thinking it's early in the morning. You don't drive. This is all going in my head. I'm like,
Right.
where did you go then? He goes, last night I went to see so and so and so and so and so and so in Cuba.
Right.
I said, all right. I said, okay. And how'd you get there? He goes, you laugh. He goes, but I've always been able to do that. And I go, do what? He goes, I can go somewhere and I can see myself leaving.
Okay.
Like his body
Yeah.
stays, I guess. I mean, it's
That
like,
sounds like
I
astral
think it's time.
projection.
That sounds like it's time to call the people in, with the jackets, is what it sounds like to me. But no, I make fun of him, but I believe him.
Right.
I believe because
Right. So
that's
yeah,
his.
exactly. That's why I asked. Uh, that yeah, astral projection, and I'm not surprised then that he has those experiences, like you, that he's sensitive.
Yeah, but I mean, I wish somebody one day would tell me, you know what what it is or what I can do it. Other than, yeah, you're sensitive. Yeah, you have this intuition. All right, well, tell me what to do with it, because if I can like help somebody or whatever, or maybe take it. I'm sorry about that dog. That's
Don't worry
his
about
dog.
it. Don't worry. I have my own animals, and I know you cannot control animals, so don't worry about that.
No, that's him. That's him. Just trying to get him to come out. Now he'll shut up. And like figure out why people know me. Like if I meet somebody that has it and they've developed it,
Mm-hmm.
they'll tell me that, oh, you got this or you have that. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Right.
But in the meantime, to me, it's fun. It's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I guess that's how I found you, because I'm looking. I'm like, gosh, is there anywhere I can
You
go?
know
Does
what?
anybody
The
know
thing
anything?
about this, you know why, Melissa, and that's why I told you, your approach to it. I wish more people had that approach to either having that ability, either because there's people that they're not that sensitive, but they just happen to move into a place which has got so much going on that, like, you have to have it. You experience something. It's just because of what's
Mhm.
there. But then they move away, and that's it. But let's say somebody like you, which has that sensitivity, that ability, and for lack of a better word, I hate to say it, wherever you go, something's gonna, um, either, because if it's not because it's something that was already there, it's going to try to communicate with you because you have that ability. But I wish more people had that attitude of I'm not scared. I mean, maybe I imagine maybe you've had moments of getting wigged out, like when you said like when you were a teenager and you're hearing something coming up the stairs and you're thinking it's your parent and then it's not. It's like okay,
Yeah, it sure wasn't.
you know, um, and then that is. But it sounds like you have a very good grip on reality, and you're like, okay, I know I can see or feel or hear, but I can't stop living my life. There's other people that get totally overwhelmed with this. They either
Mhm.
they stay in the house all day. They get, in other words, they start seeing stuff when there really isn't anything there because they're so scared that any little
Yeah.
thing is like that. That's like what you said when you were at work, that when you had that thing on your head, like here, you immediately started to, okay, what was that? The vent from the AC? Whatever.
Oh, yeah, I try to debunk it. I have
Yeah,
another
of
one I
course, which
just
is what people
remembered.
should do. And unfortunately, a lot of times because of these reality shows, everybody just jumps to the conclusion immediately it's supernatural. And it's like, come on, if that's the case, you know, as far as you're also you made a good point. Chances are you're never going to outrun this because you have that ability. And
Hmm.
usually what happens is that you're going to have ghosts or spirits, whatever you want to call them, that are going to try to communicate with you because they realize that you can possibly see or hear them or something. And sometimes they have a message, and sometimes they're, because of the way or the way they died, the circumstances, they're caught in a loop. Like what you know how you said that thing about that one that you uh sensed at your cousin's house, that all it did
Oh
was
yeah,
like pace back and forth,
yeah,
pace, very manic,
uneasy,
very, you know,
uneasy. Yeah.
uneasy, like, like almost somebody that's caught, how, and I'm sure, haven't you ever met people that when they're alive, they're like that? They're like very like,
Yeah.
okay, and this translates sometimes the same thing when people die, depending on the circumstances of when they died. Big question mark. So what I'm saying is, where chances are that you're always going to have some type of experience or pick it up because of the way you are or what your abilities are. Um, I think that you're very smart not to give it more attention because that's what a lot of people do. They do the opposite. They don't want it, but then they give it all their attention. And it's like, okay,
Hmm.
you can't have one without the other. Or, like what you said, you tell it, get out of here. And I tell people, state the obvious, you're dead. And people go, but I go, there's sometimes a lot of spirits or ghosts that are earthbound that they miss that they're dead part. They
Yeah.
either died traumatically, violently, they were
Yeah.
anesthetized, they were under heavily medicated, and they missed the part where they died, their living body died.
Hmm.
And stating the obvious, believe it or not, helps a lot when you say you're dead. You sometimes you feel foolish speaking to like thin air, like, okay, but you say
Yeah.
you're dead, leave me alone, or go into the light, or peace be with you, or and I explained that some, how you always hear about, these people that have these near death experiences, how they say, oh, I have people, that loved ones, family, friends that already were dead that came, that, or the ones that told me, no, it's not your time. Or in some cases, some of these ghosts or these spirits that don't quite want to accept or understand that they're dead, when they have that dead, let's say, family member, for example, come for them,
Hmm.
they're like, hey, no, I'm not going with you. You're dead. I'm alive. I'm alive. They still,
Right.
they don't want, they're not and then they get stuck. And, a lot of things could play into that. And but yeah, saying that you're dead, not engaging with it, definitely, I tell people, just on, besides the point, let's not even go into a darker aspect of something that wants to engage with you as an attachment. If it's somebody that's just confused and hanging around because they're hoping to get a dialogue going with you, because I would not do it like the Ouija board or anything like that. I would
Oh,
never recommend anything like that.
Mm-mm.
Sometimes people get curious and they're like, "Oh, I want to know who it is or what their name is or whatever." And I tell people, "You're crazy. Don't do that. Don't do that."
Yeah, I
Because
know.
that just it becomes a big giant headache, and that's to put it nicely.
As I started getting older, I s- I wasn't the kid that there's something under my bed
Mm-hmm.
or there's something in my closet. I was never that kid
Right.
that, oh, there's a ghost. You couldn't scare me. My
Right.
parents tried, trust me, but you could. And I remember something else now. In 2000,
Mm-hmm.
2001. In 2001, I moved into this old house with a friend and her children
Okay.
in North Miami. And it was an old house, and I fell in love with the house because it was old. We could rent it and whatnot. So
Right.
we started working on the house. It's a very charming little house with a fireplace and everything. Old,
Mm-hmm.
old. Must have been, I think it was 1930 something. All
Okay.
right. So we rented from the lady, and we start doing our own DIY and whatever.
Right.
And one day we're in the front room. It had wooden floors. And one day we're in the front room just watching television, and we hear footsteps. Actually, I hear footsteps,
Okay.
and I'm like, shit, I did not. I did not. I'm talking to myself in my head. I don't know if my friend noticed or
Okay.
heard it. So I'm ignoring it. But in my head, I'm talking to myself. Like, you're
Mm-hmm.
okay. And I'm still watching television, and you hear the thunk, 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 thunk
Mm-hmm.
coming over to the thing, and then it goes right back and up to wherever the dining room. It was dining room, living room. I'm like, okay, keep watching TV. I'm not even looking at her, right?
Right.
She's to my left. There it goes again, walking, pom, pom, pom. And we both, at the same time, we went one of these, right?
Right.
Like, she goes, you heard that? I go,
Right. So I was
yeah.
gonna say
She goes,
now you're catching. You're like, okay,
yeah,
she heard it too.
yeah. And then she goes, what was it? And I said, Claudia, they're footsteps. It's a wooden floor. She goes, Mel, you stop. She's not into it as I was. I'm like, what do
Mm-hmm.
you want me to do? You want me to go look? So I went, I got up, I looked. There's nothing there. And we heard it again. I came back a few minutes, we heard it again. She's like, come on, Mel. I go, what do you want me to do? I'm not doing it. The children are not here.
Right.
It's obviously not the dogs. We were here four of them at the same time. There's
Right.
three dogs in the house.
Uh
These are
huh.
steps. I'm like, okay, you know what? I said, I don't know what to do. Don't be afraid of it. Nothing's gonna happen. She's like, do you think it's somebody in the house? I'm like, I don't think there's anyone here. We have three dogs, and one of them
Uh huh.
is a little Rottweiler who is pretty protective of
Right.
me. Don't worry about it. And then you get the obvious. Okay, who left the water running in the bathroom? Who was it? Was it you? Of course, I'm pointing at the kids, and
Mm-hmm.
they're all looking at me. And they're like, Mel, you were the last one to leave. And everybody knows that OCD Melissa does not leave anything on or anything out of place or anything running. So I'm like, shit. And Claudia and I looked at each other again. She's like, we gotta find out. And I said, I don't know. Let me find out with the renters, who lived there before.
Mm-hmm.
The renter's father was, this could be bullshit, okay? But
Right.
the lady was older now.
Mm-hmm.
Her father was the architect for Fairchild Gardens. You know
Wow.
Fairchild
Yes, of
Gardens?
course.
He designed that house, and they lived in that house.
Okay.
Apparently, he died. Or
Okay.
if he didn't, I mean, obviously he did die, but I think he died in the house. I don't
Okay.
think so. If they have so much money, they would have died there. Pero bueno, I don't know.
Right. Right.
So that was the story behind that house. That was in North Miami.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I have forgotten about that one because those are good. Because when I see someone else freaking out, I enjoy that.
But the thing is that, well, and that's the thing. Had the family kept the house for all that time, and also if they were using it as a rental, God knows, maybe,
They
maybe,
weren't.
They
It
weren't.
was pretty abandoned. No, because
Oh,
the lady didn't live here. The daughter didn't live here.
I get it. I get
So it
it.
was out of shape. That's why I said, listen, this is such a great opportunity for us. Let
Yes.
us rent it and we'll help you fix
Mm-hmm.
it. So,
Right,
yeah.
right. That it was just falling apart. Like, yeah, I know what you're saying. That it was not being taken care of. It didn't have any maintenance.
Yeah, yeah, it was pretty. It looked like a haunted house, but I loved it. It was a corner house, real small. It was small. It was like for 1930s
Mm-hmm.
with the fireplace, a fireplace in Florida. Go figure.
People don't realize
It
that back then, yeah, they still did put fireplaces in a lot of these older homes. Yeah, yeah.
was beautiful. It was a beautiful house, but yeah, yeah, that was another one. And so it's not. They're
Did you
not.
ever? Did you guys ever
They're,
have any more experiences with that, or was it just stuff like that, like that? Like, did you do it? Did you do it? No, it wasn't me. It was you? No. Okay, so
oh, the we didn't want to alarm the kids.
yeah, I know.
We had to talk about it because then it came to a point where they did not want to sleep anymore. And now we're talking they're like 10 and
Right.
12 and 13,
Yeah.
11 and 13, and they just don't want to be away from us. And I'm like, this is not, we can't, we got to find a way to tell them that nothing's happening because we had the conversation in front of them.
Right. Yeah. One of those things that you don't know what direction it's going to take, and now they're like yeah, yeah. I see how kids sometimes then their imagination fills in the blanks, and then they don't want to be alone. Or yeah.
Yeah, and there was only one bathroom in, which is also weird. You can tell the house was old. There was only
Mm-hmm.
one
Sure.
bathroom,
Yes.
and the rooms are tiny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They were small rooms.
Yeah.
So I knew the house was old. The garage is gorgeous. It was not your typical garage. It's just so charming. I'm sorry, I just fell in love with the house, but it was haunted for sure.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a lot of things. Yeah, people don't realize that a lot of these older homes, all these older Florida homes, yeah, we get so used to bigger rooms and walk-in closets and stuff like that. And
Hmm.
some of these older homes, I mean, I remember my family, they bought in Hialeah. The house had to have been built, I want to say, in the 40s, and it had a fireplace. It had a fireplace, of all things. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's that's the way they would build things back there for the 3 days out of the winter that it actually gets cold down here. That's all.
Three. That's a lot.
I know. I tell people
That's a
that
lot.
people. I tell people, if you live in South Florida, your coat and your sweater will last you for about 25 years because you
Yeah,
don't ever
it's
use
true.
them. You never use them.
It's true.
Well,
But yeah, I mean,
Melissa, I want to thank you so much for sharing those stories. Those are great. Let me tell you
yeah.
something. I think you have a really good grip on it. You do. You have a substantial grip on it. I I think the way you're handling it is the best way. Um, I could see where maybe people will come to you and say, "Hey, can you help me out with this?" The only thing I would ever say is sometimes you might need to be careful if you go to some place on behalf of somebody and there's something really dark and not just a regular dead person. That you'll be like,
Yeah.
you know what? And that does happen, but there's some things that you can't fight it. You can't like
No.
outrun it, and you just you sound like you really got and you're not scared. That's a really important thing. I want to say that again because I run across so many people that are just so wigged out, and everything all of a sudden their whole life revolves around this. The because I heard a creak, and it's like, okay, but that could have been anything.
Well, it becomes a paranoia,
Yeah, exactly. That's a
I
very good
think.
word for it.
And then you're gonna hear things that are not really necessarily there.
Right.
And with me, I tried to educate myself when I
Mm-hmm.
realized after so many years that, oh, okay, well, these things happen to me and I'm not the only one it happens
Right.
to. And I started seeing, the shows and educating myself and trying to recognize when it's not good
Right.
and when it's just okay.
And
You just
sometimes, let me tell
can't.
you something. Sometimes you will hear weird stuff that really is not paranormal. But
Mhm.
but if you're primed and you hear something weird, maybe something that's not part of the normal noises. Let's say, for example, your house makes. After a while, you know the noises in your house, what they are, and maybe one day or whatever, something happens. You hear something. Sometimes things happen. That's not paranormal, but when you're primed, that immediately becomes a manifestation. I know it's the ghost or whatever. And it's like, don't do that. So, I would say you've got a good handle on stuff.
Thanks.
You're a realist. How's that? And it sounds like you understand that as long as you have that boundary, this thing is not going to do anything to you. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because you don't engage with it. You don't like.
Mm,
It's like, so you don't give it entry. You don't give it an entry into your personal space or your life or your mind.
mhm.
So that's
Yeah,
that's
no,
super.
my life doesn't revolve around it or whatever, but the whole idea of everything just fascinates me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to find people that are in my beliefs and kind of stuff like that. But
Right.
I mean,
Let
I
me
do.
ask
I
you something.
find it
I'm
kind of
gonna say,
fascinating.
now you know that, and you know what? At the same time, I know where you're coming from. Maybe you want to say, okay, I want to talk about this, but I'm also weary of what if I run across somebody that's really cuckoo cuckoo? You know what I'm saying? Like, or
Yeah.
it's gonna look at me. I would even say, I know in the internet, I mean, in meetups, I have never, the meetup thing. But again, some people feel unusual, meeting with strangers and talking about their
Mhm.
experiences, and then thinking, okay, yeah, possibly I'm going to meet somebody like me that's a normal person that's had these experiences all their lives.
Yeah.
Okay. Or, am I going to run across somebody that's like, okay, but, has lost kind of their grip on reality? That can happen too. And I've run across
Yeah.
that in some instances where people, it's like, okay, the only thing paranormal is what's going on inside your head. There's nothing outside of that. That's it. But yeah, that happens all the time. I want to wish you the best of luck, and
Thanks.
if anything more adventures happen there, or you ever discover the identity of your kitchen cabinet person, let me know. Reach out to me, okay?
You got it. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
No, thank you, sweetheart. Take care.
You too.
Bye
Have a good
bye.
night.
You too.
Alrighty. Thanks.
Yay. See? That's a true believer, guys. I told you I would bring you some stories from true believers. Yes. So, sometimes, I think one of the most important things, besides the first-hand retelling of personal experiences, is her approach, how she's handling it. I'm not kidding. I wish more people had that perspective. Okay, whether one, like I said, they just lucky them, they end up living in a place that's got stuff going on, or like her, they've got some type of sensitivity, is either a psychic or medium. So it's, for lack of a better word, it's almost inevitable that they're going to get a visitor. How's that? That's going to try to engage with them. And, this thing about, um, and I have heard of this, like, like it sounds like her dad's seeing something or having an experience of something, and then she's having like a parallel experience. And I've heard of that where sometimes, you think, well, if there's more than one entity in the house, everybody knows everybody else. And it's no, I've heard that they exist in their own, how can I say, I don't want to, their own time continuum, and sometimes they're aware, and sometimes they're unaware of another spirit, even if it's a place that's small. It's one's there doing this thing, maybe engaging with that living human being, and then you have the other one doing their thing, and they are totally oblivious one from the other. And it sounds like that's possible. Sounds maybe that's why her and her dad, they're having parallel but different experiences, or like she said, things happen only when her dad isn't there. And that's really weird because, sometimes people say, you know what, things only happen when a certain person is there. Almost like maybe it's an attachment with them or it follows them around. So in other words, if that person's not there, nothing happens. Well, this is the other way around. It's almost like and I did ask you that thing about the kitchen for a good reason, because that's my theory, and I've run across it based on a lot of years of investigations. Because everybody always thinks of, oh, the middle of the night, when spooky stuff goes on, or you have some type of activity. And in my experience, you will get a lot of activity based on what was the routine that entity had when it was alive. Because sometimes they're kind of stuck in a loop. You know how, the majority of humans, we're creatures of habit. And sometimes that habit, in other words, we like it, it gives us this structure. It comforts us. Some people more than others. Some people like she said, OCD-ish. And then there's people, but most of us, we want our little structure, our routine, maybe whether it's coffee or whatever. But my point is that I've had enough experiences where, depending on who the entity is, where they're, what is it that's holding them, anchoring them to the earth level, that they're kind of like on a loop, almost like their comfort level is doing what they would do a lot when they were alive, their routine. And that's why sometimes you have a lot of manifestation activity in the middle of the day in a kitchen. Why? Because this was the time that entity, when it was alive, would be doing things. Maybe a housewife. This was where they spent a lot of time, doing things in the kitchen. It could have been a person that really liked cooking. In other words, not only were in the kitchen preparation, but because they liked cooking, so they would spend a lot of time there. In a lot of households, kitchen is the center of activity. Everybody always thinks, well, now, lately, sometimes we see the Florida room, or what they call the family room, the place where the TV's at, depending, of course, how big your house is like where everybody hangs out. But a lot of times in a lot of households, myself included, the kitchen always ended up being, especially if you had some type of like seating there or small table, the kitchen would be the center of activity for, let's say, in the middle of the day, whether, you had a visitor come over, a friend come over, you'd hang out in the kitchen and they would cook and you would talk, and a lot of things would happen in the kitchen besides the cooking or the eating part, depending. People talk, neighbors would come over, you'd take a seat in the kitchen and talk, and maybe while this person is doing that or this, or keeping an eye on. And you have to think, because I tell everybody, this is what happens when you've been alive for a little bit while longer. Once upon a time, a lot of the stuff in the kitchen was not automated. In other words, timers or stuff that right now you get a lot of appliances that, slow cookers and things, and you can put a timer on it and you don't have to worry about watching it. It's going to turn off, and it's not going to let things burn. And once upon a time, that wasn't the case. You had to keep an eye on your things. You had to keep an eye on what you were cooking. If you had gas, basically you had an open flame cooking stuff in your kitchen. And let me make a point for anybody that has, when you cook with gas or with open flame, that thing will cook quick. Okay, the heating on it is a lot more forceful, I guess, than, let's say, electric cooking. So my point, let's get to the bit, that sometimes maybe this activity, like she's saying, all these things going on in the kitchen, maybe that ties into an entity, that entity that's there for her, or maybe that didn't live there, or even if it lived there from a time where the kitchen was for them the heart of the house, or they spent a lot of time there for a lot of reasons. Maybe a lot of cooking. They liked cooking. They would sit on the phone and talk in the kitchen, because again, there was a time where your phone had a cord on it, and phones would go. Usually, one of the main places was in the kitchen. Once upon a time, when phones weren't cordless, much less cellular. So, without knowing the exact history, those are things sometimes that you look at. Especially if you're doing any type of investigation and you're trying to figure out, like, why is that activity always happen in that particular room, or at that particular time, or in the presence, whatever it is that you've got as far as your parameters. These are the things that you look at, and a lot of these things do happen in the middle of the day, not in the middle of the night. Sometimes things are overlooked depending on how many people are living there, because there's noise and stuff going on, and you've got the TV and people, and sometimes things are happening and you don't it just falls through the cracks. But I've had and I've talked about it when I had my experience as a teenager, okay, that I came out of sleep because I heard somebody rummaging around in the kitchen of my house. My mom had left for work, and the kitchen was like towards the front of the house. And what woke me up was hearing exactly what she described. Somebody opening the cupboard doors, and then almost like when you hear, like, when somebody rummages around in the drawer, like clang, 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 pa, pa, pa. And that's what woke me up. And I knew I was wide awake. And I thought it was my grandmother who lived across the street. At that moment, in that moment. The truth is, my grandmother had really bad arthritis in both of her knees. And there was nothing that, my grandmother was a cook. I mean, she had all the ingredients, plates, pots, you name it. There was nothing, thinking later on, that she would have wanted to get from the house, from the kitchen. I mean, she had a key to the house basically just as a backup, but my grandmother would never have gone there. Everybody went to her house. But at that moment when I came out of sleep, logical mind is, I'm thinking, it's my grandmother rummaging around in my kitchen. Okay. And that's why I didn't wig out. It was it was morning. I skipped school. I felt kind of I didn't go to school. I could have gone to school, but I just decided not to go to school. And it was the morning. It was full on morning. It was quiet. Like maybe 8 or 9 in the morning. And when I mean quiet, the only ones that lived in that house were me and my mom. And my mom had already left for work. We lived in a residential area, which by this I mean it was quiet. It wasn't like noise it was a single family home. So in other words, the noises I heard were unmistakable. So when she's describing what she's talking about in the kitchen, I've had that experience firsthand. And the only reason I didn't wig out was I thought it was my grandmother. And I've told this story a bunch of times, so catch it another. As it turned out later, that wasn't my grandmother. It was, and so again, things like that, it's very interesting. But for any of you listening to the podcast, any of you find yourself in a similar situation, I urge you, the way she's handling it, that's pretty much spot on. It's pretty much spot on how you handle situations like this, where you just draw a very strong boundary between yourself and whatever it is, especially if you're sensitive, because chances are there's a lot of people say, well, you know what, I don't think I could handle with the hearing things in my kitchen or hearing steps, and then you say, okay, what if you try to move this smudge, like she said, smudge it, pray it out, and you get it to move on. If you're psychic or sensitive, chances are you're going to pick up somebody again. And like I said, there's a lot of free floaters out there that you don't have to go in other words, you don't have to visit the haunted house. They're gonna find you. They're gonna find you, and I guess that's part of being who you are. But anyway, guys, I hope you really liked the story. I thought it was great. And I'm hoping, again, true believers, if you're another person like Melissa and you've had experiences, contact me and I'll interview you however you want. If you want to write a story, if you want to do it like I did with her on Skype, if you just want to do it on the phone, we could do that too. Um, Again, as you could tell, she really had no idea the identity of any of these entities. It wasn't like, oh, I moved into this house and I knew that people had died or gotten killed, or I saw the face of whatever that was and I know that that's so and so or my neighbor. A lot of times people have these experiences and they have no resolution. They have no point of origin. They have no reason. They don't even have the identity. Okay? I still want to hear about it. And anything else you ran across Bigfoot, you saw Dogman while you were hunting, UFOs off in the distance, alien abduction. I'm good with that. Reincarnation experience. Yep. I'm on board with that too. So don't forget about me. MiamiGhostChronicles.com or email me at Marlene at MiamiGhostChronicles.com. Take care. You're all wonderful.